You used the word establishment.
Yeah.
I didn't say that we didn't have any power or that audiences weren't powerful. But when you use the term establishment, I think that that's more than just having an audience. That's having an institutional component that I don't think we have. But I think legacy media does. I think the government and the intelligence communities do. I think Hollywood certainly does. And I think all of those people, all of those power factions have worked together for a very, very, very long time. So to say that a few comedians with podcasts equal that seems crazy.
I see
to
why
me.
you say, okay.
And if I can correct her in a nice way, that's the way to do it.
Tim Dillon went on CNN to promote his new Netflix special and gave a masterclass in staying calm while being interviewed by a Starbucks barista CNN just hired to do a hit piece on him. It was so bad that CNN didn't want to release the whole interview. It took Tim publicly pushing for them to drop the full unedited hour.
I still haven't accepted the fact that I've left the left.
I did a CNN interview for an hour because I'm promoting my special. And then,
my God, did you really?
Yeah, and they asked
Who'd
me.
you talk to?
This girl, Elle Reeves.
Was she cool?
She was cool. They said to me at CNN, they're like, we're editing the interview. I said, put the hour out. I sat there for an hour and we had a nice conversation. But, you know, we talked for 1 hour and I was like, put it out. You can only put out a few minutes on network, fine. But it's wrong to have someone come in and talk for an hour.
Right.
And then
use 3 minutes.
And then use 5 minutes.
Yeah. So how much did they use?
We don't know yet. They haven't put it out.
And did they say we can't put the whole hour out?
I texted this journalist and she texted me. She goes, I'm pushing for like a long form release. I go, yeah, man, just put out the interview.
When it finally came out, the comment section destroyed the interviewer. Not only did she appear to be on enough sedatives to take out a horse, I love horses! But it felt like she did zero research. She brings up Rogan about 3 minutes in, and from that point on, it's basically an hour of Tim calmly responding like a sweet, mildly disappointed aunt, trying to reason with a 6-year-old asking painfully dumb questions.
So I'm sure you're aware of the, like, where's the liberal Joe Rogan, like that whole conversation.
Yes, that is a question they're asking.
That is a question they're asking. So I mean, I was interested in that. I did a lot of research, but I think that's maybe not the most interesting question. However, I think you have to admit, like, Joe Rogan has changed comedy.
I think Joe Rogan has changed media.
Can you explain how that works?
Well, Joe Rogan has this amazingly popular platform where he's led by his interests, meaning like he's bringing on people that have these long-form conversations. In a world where everything's like consumed in like 30-second clips or 60-second clips and 15-second clips, Joe Rogan is having 3-hour discussions with people on anything from conspiracy theories to science to paleontology. He's all over the map, but he's led by his interests and he's accountable to himself and his audience, right? I mean, he's kind of like blazed this trail of like, I'm interested in certain things and I'm going to talk about them with people who I find interesting. There's no real media that was structured like that ever, right? I mean, that's not how any of these companies were structured. It wasn't like, come on in, what are you guys interested in? Let's talk about it. It was kind of like, these are the stories and here's how we're going to cover them and here's the angles. So I think the entire structure of what Rogan has done has changed everything because it's opened up this idea that you could do that. You could pursue a strategy of talking to people that you find interesting and then growing a tremendously successful platform out of that.
Rogan moved to Austin, opened a comedy club there, and now all these comedians have moved to Austin to be part of that world.
Yeah.
Like, how does that work? Like, what is that like?
This is the first time I've ever clicked on a CNN video. CNN interviewing Tim like he's the vice president to the Joe Rogan Experience. Tim Dillon looks like he's teaching his niece how the world works. Tim says Rogan changed media and her follow-up is, can you explain how that works? Or, a bunch of comedians moved to Austin. How does that work? Like, what do you mean, how does that work? They packed bags and got on a plane. Tim handled her with kid gloves, knowing full well that if he showed any aggression, CNN would slice the footage into some angry right-wing comedian meltdown narrative.
I won't name the person, but there's a comedian who lives near me.
Okay.
And he has this joke about how he walks all around New York and he sees all these flags from all these different countries, but he never sees the American flag.
Yeah.
Well, we live near each other, and I know he's talking about this little Caribbean grocery store that's got a little plastic streamer of Caribbean flags, and I'm like, it feels a little phony to me. And I'm like, it feels like he's like trying to appeal to a certain audience. I'm not accusing you of that, by the way.
No, I mean, I've never been to that
analysis.
Caribbean grocery store. I don't live in your neighborhood. Do I think people exaggerate things for the benefit of comedy? Probably all the time.
But like, are they pitching themselves to like a Fox audience? Like
I
comedians?
mean, I couldn't know that, but does everyone's pitching themselves to somebody? So when I hear a comedian do something like that, or I hear a comedian talk about how terrible it was that they went home and their parents were like the most racist people ever, and they were so out of touch and whatever, and it's usually like, my parents are trying to be liberal, but they're not, and here's why they're evil. And you're like, okay. It usually feels like it's something that's been wildly blown out of proportion because that's most of comedy, right? It's like taking something and then extrapolating something from it. I mean, I don't know that particular joke, but like, it just feels like the basis of a lot of jokes is like, let's blow something up beyond the scope of its actual meaning to make it kind of goofy or make it symbolic of something else. So I think a lot of people do that in comedy. They just find something that's symbolic of something else they want to talk about.
But like you must like to shit talk. I mean, I shit talk within my industry.
Of course.
Do you ever see other comedians
and think they're not good? Yes.
Tim explaining nuance for 71 minutes to someone on heroin. Why is she speaking like they're at a sleepover hiding under a blanket with a flashlight? It honestly looked like Tim was trying not to laugh half the time. Her questions had the same energy as a kid asking why the moon doesn't fall out of the sky, dumb in a way that tests your patience. She even claims a comedian's manager told her that Rogan wouldn't let them go on CNN.
So one comedian who was like kind of in that world, Fox, etc. That I tried to interview, his manager told me that he wouldn't do an interview with me because Rogan would get mad at him for talking to CNN. And
that's untrue. That's completely insane.
Okay.
That's completely insane.
Okay.
That is completely nuts. He was afraid of you.
Oh, okay.
He thought you were going to come in and really rough him up or something. There's no such thing as Rogan would be mad at someone for talking. That's crazy.
Oh, well, that's good to hear. Okay.
No.
Good. I'll let him know.
You think that's how it works? Rogan sends emails. I know you don't think that, but that's a crazy thing. Like Rogan's like, what are you doing? Oh, you're doing this? No, do Gutfeld instead. No one cares.
I mean,
no one cares what anyone does. And the idea, I think people think life's very interesting. We see this with the people,
right?
Where they're like, there's tunnels, and you go, it's really just rich people.
Okay.
And you go, well, but they're doing all these terrible things. You go, absolutely, but they always have. And a lot of them always probably will if they can get away with it. But the levels of intrigue that people build around these things, I don't find that they're not that super interesting. You know?
I just want to be clear though, this didn't come from like a commenter.
If he canceled my appearance because of this.
I love how Tim manages to call everything she says completely insane without ever actually calling her insane. Tim would have been a great politician. He takes her weird surface level questions and flips them into actual talking points, stuff CNN definitely doesn't want to touch.
Do you feel like you're part of a new establishment that's being created?
I don't think I'm part of a new establishment. I just don't buy the narrative. So I don't think I'm a new establishment. If you weigh, again, a few comedians with podcasts versus all of the people that supported Kamala Harris, Democrat donors, billionaires, big people, if the idea is that me and a few comedians have more power than multi-billionaires, huge media institutions, a whole political party apparatus, I just don't think most people are going to buy that. I think it seems like a great way to excuse running an unpopular candidate on a platform that American people weren't sold on.
There is power in a massive audience.
There's absolutely power in a massive audience, but if you're saying that power is equal to the CIA or all of these other people that have been very critical of President Trump, right?
Yeah.
So the idea that like the power that Theo Von has would be equal to like the intelligence agencies or these massive legacy media institutions seems crazy.
But you got way more audience than when you're saying we don't have power, we're not the CIA. Well, there's some gradations between that, and also I'm sure there's like.
Well, just you use the word establishment.
Yeah.
I didn't say that we didn't have any power or that audiences weren't powerful. But when you use the term establishment, I think that's more than just having an audience. That's having an institutional component that I don't think we have. But I think legacy media does. I think the government and the intelligence communities do. I think Hollywood certainly does. And I think all of those people, all of those power factions have worked together for a very, very, very long time. So to say that a few comedians with podcasts equal that seems crazy.
I see
to
why.
me.
Okay.
This was like watching a rehab counselor explain basic reality to a trust fund kid with a Zanzibar addiction. Year is 2025. CNN is asking Tim Dillon what's going on in the world right now. She says the news got dumber and comedians got smarter and then proves it. The fact that she uses words like establishment to describe comedy podcasts just shows how far mainstream media has drifted from reality. And honestly, it's not even her fault. She's probably highly educated. Thankfully, it was Tim in the chair. There's no better comedian to represent the so-called establishment of comedy podcasters.
There's very, very successful comedians that are left of center comedians.
Like who?
I mean, what do you mean like who?
Just like,
Chelsea Handler, I think John Mulaney probably. I think that you would find Sarah Silverman. I think Bill Burr, Louis C.K. He's never voted for a Republican in his life. Why? Because he's an imperfect person? These are massively successful comedians. They're all more successful than I am. And there's nothing wrong with that. And they're all left-leaning comedians. Is there this idea that, like, they're not around or you can't find them? That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
No. But there's not
They're all doing
this
great.
cultural energy
They're
around.
They're not all as big as they were because I think careers go up and down.
I don't think she could name a single left-wing comedian because, one, she clearly knows nothing about comedy, and two, most of the comedians she would consider left-wing just aren't that funny. When Tim brings up Louis C.K., she literally turns her nose up. Then, to try to prove her point about the lack of left-leaning comedians, she claims their shows all got canceled.
But all those people who had the kind of like left-wing shows like Amy Schumer and Michelle Wolf, those, Samantha Bee, those have all been canceled. All those shows are canceled.
Well, but there'll be new ones. There'll be new ones. I mean, do you not have the faith? Do you think there's going to be no
I just
left-wing comedy?
I don't see like a little ecosystem or like a galaxy. I mean, you might dispute this, but like in the sort of right of center
There's a galaxy
world,
there's
right?
An establishment.
There's Rogan, and
there's
there's all this stuff
I mean,
around.
again, is Trevor Noah not popular? He does arenas.
No. Is he
does
popular?
He's an
He does
arena
arenas?
comedian. He's
okay.
one of the most popular comedians in the country. Hassan Minhaj, Ronnie Chang. These guys are all left-wing, and they're all really funny, really popular comics who I'm friends with and like.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I don't think this thing's happening. Whatever
Really?
everyone thinks happening, I don't think it's happening.
Why do
this
you
idea
think-
that like left-wing like where are they? Where are they? Where are they to be found? Where's Amy Schumer? I don't know. She's in her $15 million townhouse in Brooklyn. I think she'll be okay.
Tim should charge CNN a consulting fee for this interview. How does CNN make Tim seem like the most reasonable person in the world while trying to do a hit on him? That's exactly why Tim was perfect for this interview. He met every irritating question softly and with common sense. Instead of bashing her, he took the high road, understanding that it's not really her fault.
I think a lot of what people are missing is that people don't have a shared base of knowledge. So people feel like they're being attacked all the time. But really, this woman just didn't know a lot of things. And she had made assumptions based on not having the information. So the way to deal with that is not to go, what the f*** are you talking about, you stupid bit? Like the way to deal with it is to go, oh yeah, I don't think you realize X or Y or Z. She doesn't know. She read a few articles about podcasts and then did this interview. She's not a student of comedy. She's not a scholar of comedy. She doesn't understand a lot of the topics that she's talking about. And if I can correct her in a nice way, that's the way to do it.